In this video, I describe some of the negative effects that climate change is having and is likely to have on your personal and family finances, and what you can do to minimize those negative effects. Climate change causes more frequent extreme weather events. Rising global temperatures are causing an increase in ocean temperatures, and in some areas are contributing to sea level rise. Warmer ocean temperatures are making storms wetter, which in turn is causing more frequent and more extreme flood events, both near the shore and inland. Storm surges associated with hurricanes and so-called superstorms are becoming higher and are causing more flooding. If you live in a flood-prone area, you need to be aware that homeowners and renters insurance does not cover flood damage, and even a small amount of water entering your home or apartment can cause costly damage to your home and your belongings. Here are some of the things you can do to minimize the damaging effects of flooding. If you live in a flood-prone area of the United States, you can get flood insurance from the FEMA National Insurance Program. Additionally, there are steps that you can take to reduce flood damage. They include 1. Elevating and anchoring your critical utilities, including electrical panels, propane tanks, sockets, wiring, appliances, and heating systems. 2. You can waterproof your basement and install a sump pump with a backup battery. You can make sure your gutters are clear of debris, and you can apply sealants to prevent water from entering your residence. And you can raise or move your furniture to prevent damage if a flood is imminent. Be sure to have copies of all your important documents stored in a location that is protected from flooding, and consider raising your home or business sufficiently to minimize the chance of it flooding. Links to the FEMA flood insurance program and to flood risk maps are included in the video description. With global temperatures rising, more frequent and more intense heat waves have become common in many parts of the world, and here in the United States we have seen our share of these events. But surprisingly, climate change also has been responsible for some extreme low temperature events as well. Though less frequent than extreme heat events, changes in the jet stream caused by rising temperatures in the Arctic have driven cold air into parts of the country that are not well equipped to cope with extremely low temperatures. Both heat waves and unusual cold snaps impose extra costs on the average person. These costs usually come in the form of higher energy bills, both for air conditioning and for heating. Here are some of the things that you can do to minimize these costs. If you are a homeowner, consider installing additional attic insulation and an attic fan to help control air conditioning costs. Also note that some electric utilities have rates that vary during the day to encourage customers to avoid using electrical appliances during the hottest part of the day. Be sure to find out if your electricity supplier has such time of use rates so that you can save some money by running your appliances at times when the rates are the lowest. Also investigate adding rooftop solar panels to your home to provide part of the electricity needed for air conditioning. Solar panel costs have been dropping rapidly in recent years, and that, together with tax credits for installing them, is making solar feasible in more parts of the country. Unfortunately, if you are a renter, you are at the mercy of your landlord as far as building upgrades are concerned, and whether or not you have adequate air conditioning and heating to cope with major heat waves and unusual periods of cold weather. Note that many communities provide cooling centers and cold weather shelters that you may need to take advantage of. Be sure you know their locations and transportation options for getting to them. Climate change also is contributing to rising costs for food and fiber products. As global temperatures rise, agricultural regions are experiencing more frequent drought conditions, which are affecting these crops. This is contributing to increasing costs for food and fiber products, and unfortunately, there's not a lot that the average consumer can do to mitigate those price increases. For example, recent drought conditions in Texas and Arizona have decimated the upland cotton crop in those areas. According to a recent New York Times article, drought conditions in Texas during 2022 led to the loss of about 74% of the upland cotton crop in that state. Similar losses occurred for the upland cotton crop in Arizona. Upland cotton is a relatively coarse fiber used in many consumer products, including tampons, cloth diapers, cotton gauze, cotton balls, etc. As a result, consumers in the United States have seen the price of tampons increase by 13%, the price of cloth diapers increase by 21%, cotton balls have increased 9%, and gauze bandages have increased by 8%. All of that is well above the country's overall inflation rate of 6.5% in 2022. Upland cotton also is used in the production of denim fabric. At least 50% of the denim in every pair of Wrangler and Lee jeans is woven from American-grown cotton, and the cost of that cotton can represent more than half the cost of the fabric in a pair of jeans. In the past decade, costs for Lee and Wrangler jeans had decreased owing to manufacturing in countries with very low labor costs. But with recent increases in the cost of American cotton, price increases for jeans of about 10% are expected for 2023. Climate change also has contributed to drought conditions in the southwestern part of the United States, driving up the cost of fresh vegetables. Arizona and California are the major producers of fresh vegetables in the United States during winter months. The drought in the Southwest has reduced the amount of water available to farms in Arizona and in California's Imperial Valley, and prices for fresh vegetables from these areas have increased as much as 40%. Unfortunately, most consumers have no good options to cope with the increased cost for food and fiber that are being driven by climate change. Climate change is also driving up the costs of homeowners insurance, renters insurance, and vehicle insurance for many people. Insurance companies are in the business of measuring risk and offering insurance against these risks at rates which will allow them to turn a profit, or in the case of a mutual insurance company, at least break even. In recent years, insurance companies have been examining how climate change affects their policyholders, and they have been adjusting their rates accordingly. For example, they know that climate change is contributing to more frequent and more destructive wildfires, and they have been adjusting their rates to compensate for increased losses from wildfires. Likewise, they know that climate change contributes to rising sea levels that can affect property that they insure, and climate change has been making storms wetter, so the insurers have been adjusting their rates to account for more water damage to the properties that they insure. Likewise, companies that insure automobiles and other vehicles have been increasing their rates to compensate for more damage to vehicles caused by the effects of climate change. Some insurance companies even have stopped offering homeowners policies in areas with very high wildfire risk. While insurance remains available through state plans or premier insurers in those areas, rates can be very high and coverage can be limited. Mitigation, however, is possible for many homeowners. Several insurers now offer discounts to policyholders who take actions to reduce the likelihood of water or fire damage to their properties. If you live in areas where there is a high risk of fire or water damage to your property, speak to your insurance agent to see if there are actions that you can take to reduce risks to your property from fire or water damage. Also, you may think that if you live in an area outside of the high-risk areas for fire or water damage, that you are not effective. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Insurers have been raising their rates outside the high-risk areas to help compensate for losses in the high-risk areas in order to limit their increases in rates in the high-risk areas. Lastly, I want to talk about how climate change may impact your investments. Whether you are a serious investor with a significant portfolio or just an average person with a 401k retirement plan, an IRA, or some modest income property that you are depending on for retirement income, you need to be aware of the impact that climate change can have on your investments. For example, if you have invested in income property located in a flood-prone area or an area at high risk for wildfire, both the value of your property and the security of the stream of income from it likely will be affected by climate change. You need to keep track of how the climate change risk to your property is changing, and in some cases you may want to consider selling existing income property so that you can purchase replacement property in areas less threatened by climate change. Since insurance companies generally keep track of the risks presented by climate change, I recommend talking with your insurance agent at least once a year to see how the climate change risk to your property is changing with time. If you are an investor with a significant portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and other investments, you need to be aware of both the risks and opportunities that climate change is presenting to your investments. For example, if your portfolio includes direct or indirect investments in multinational companies with large carbon footprints, those investments may be at risk as governments around the world take steps to regulate such companies. On the other hand, if your portfolio contains investments in companies that have positions in renewable energy, you may find their value increasing on account of climate change. In any event, it will pay you to regularly discuss the climate change risk to your portfolio with your investment advisors and to adjust your portfolio as needed. If your investments primarily are in a 401k or other retirement account, I recommend discussing the climate change impact on them at least annually with your investment advisor so that you can make changes needed to protect and possibly enhance the value of your retirement investments. Finally, I want to mention briefly ESG investments. You may have heard that some mutual funds that are oriented towards ESG investments have done better than traditional mutual funds in recent years. ESG investing focuses on three factors. The first is environment. What kind of impact does a company have on the environment? This can include a company's carbon footprint, toxic chemicals involved in its manufacturing processes, and sustainability efforts that make up its supply chain. The second is social. How does the company improve its social impact, both within the company and in the broader community? Social factors include everything from LGBTQ equality, racial diversity in both executive suite and staff overall, and inclusion programs and hiring practices. It even looks at how a company advocates for social good in the wider world beyond its limited sphere of business. Third is governance. How does the company board and management drive positive change? Governance includes everything from issues surrounding executive pay to diversity in leadership, as well as how well that leadership responds to and interacts with shareholders. So as you can see, ESG investing involves much more than just climate change impacts. If these factors are of concern to you, there are several services that provide ESG ratings for individual companies and ESG mutual funds. But you should be aware that ESG investing is just one of several strategies that can be employed to deal with climate change investment risk and opportunities. Your investment advisor can provide more information on these various strategies. Most people should be able to find at least one of these strategies that they are comfortable with in order to mitigate the impact of climate change on their investments. I hope that you have found this brief discussion of the impacts of climate change on your finances helpful. If you have any questions, please add them to the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. Also, please take some time to watch some of my other climate-related videos, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.